I love this. I love this yellow rose. Let's jump right in and talk a little bit about cycling for our longtime researchers. As Yellow Rose had stated, she feels that many of those that are in our GLP-1 and PEP community are unaware of the fact that breaks are essential. So let's talk a little bit about that. We'll start with the usual disclaimer, which is that I am not a medical professional. Research PEPs are for research purposes only. This is not medical advice, just good advice. Okay, so PEPs nor GLPs are meant to be a forever sprint at the same speed. It's why with your GLP-1s, you started at an introductory dose and you waited to see how your body adapted and how it felt, and then you moved forward. And it's the same thing with PEPs. Now for PEPs, we call that cycling, right? We've all heard that, cycling. You're cycling your PEPs. So certain PEPs for a certain amount of time at a certain dosage, and that's how you research PEPs. For GLP-1s, we call them periodizing. And I know that's a less than common word. So here's the definition of periodizing. And this is why we start at certain numbers and we increase as we go along. What does that do? That helps us to tolerate, right? Our body naturally adapts. So we tolerate things as we go along. It also helps us to know, really how well we're maintaining muscle. How well are we able to tolerate certain foods in order to keep protein and hydration up? That's what periodizing all has to do with. Okay, so let's start with our GLPs. When we're talking about sema or tears or that which shall not be named, they are more considered treatment for chronic conditions. So it tends to be a difficult situation when you hard stop them. Generally, they're working every day for you in conjunction with all the other things you're doing with your hydration, with your sleep, with your protein intake, so on and so forth, your exercise. And when you stop right away, you tend to have some weight gain, especially for those of us, such as myself, who experienced a really serious bout of food noise, which if you're new to the community, that is something that you will either have or not have. And I hope for you all that you do not have food noise. It is the worst and the best thing that disappeared when I started my GLP-1. It's that feeling of constantly needing to hear and feel what you're going to eat next, to know, it's cravings, it's constantly thinking about food. That's what food noise is. And so that comes back pretty quickly for most when they do a hard stop on something like a GLP-1. And that is why we do something called titration. We titrate according to whatever that number is. And we have pretty typical sequences in our community that are used and that have been studied. And we use that in order to have more steady and even flow of the med. So your goal with your GLPs is to find the most effective dose for your goals and what you'd like to achieve and accomplish. And then as you move into maintenance, hooray, you have lost all the weight that you wanted to lose. You are feeling the way you want to feel. You are adapting to your new lifestyle. You can go to the lowest dose that's going to help you to maintain. And that, along with your diet, your exercise, your hydration, your rest, et cetera, is going to help you to maintain this lifestyle and who you are going to be for a longer period of time. So that's generally where the titration comes and goes when it comes to our GLPs. So now with research PEPs, I can give you a few examples, but just remember that these are not definitive patterns. These are research patterns, right? It really depends. And when we say, and again, I'll give you a few examples of what the industry says. I'll just be regurgitating some of that information, but just know that your own personal health, the quality and standard of the product that's being researched, and the amount that's being researched all matters. So when we say a particular amount of a particular research PEP, that depends on your test subject. So please always keep that in mind when you're looking at what some of the gurus on here are recommending. A lot of what they're recommending is based on their own journey. And so just always keep that in mind. So BPC, body protection compound 157, for example, one that in my world is actually pretty difficult for me to cycle off of with my research, because it does assist so much in some of the shoulder joint situation that I have going on from sports injuries. So that particular one is 4 to 12 weeks. See how big of a range that is on, with 2 to 4 weeks off. So that's just one example. And some of our research PEPs come with reassessment times as well. So MOTS, for example, 2 to 4 weeks on, 2 to 4 weeks off. Many do actually 2 weeks on in 1 month and 2 weeks off, and then they do that for 2 to 3 months and then stop and reassess. It's also for those of us who are longer time researchers, it can also be a thing to be so involved. I was going to say obsessed, but it sounds like a bad word, and obsessed in this respect is a great word. So I won't use it. So we're so engulfed and we care so much about this community. We know how great these PEPs work that we often will take too many at once, right? So it's not uncommon to have a researcher who's pinning, 5 or 6 different PEPs at one time. And that's probably not the best way to go. Again, not medical advice, but you want to know what's working well for you, don't you? You want to know what is having an impact on you and in what way, especially if you're, for example, you're in this looking for better sleep. And so you start with DSIP, and maybe you try another PEP, maybe your Tessa, you take at night as well. And some parts of different PEPs have better results, or they work on different mechanisms in different ways. So it's always good to be able to assess based on how long you've been taking something and how do you actually feel in a few week period of taking just this thing, or this thing along with another PEP that doesn't actually counteract each other. It'll give you more of an idea of what research you should be continuing and what you should be discontinuing. Okay, and so what do you do during your on and off blocks? So your off blocks, your on blocks, you're obviously researching the PEP. What do you do during your off blocks? Well, you're going to keep that protein up. You're going to keep that hydration up, right? You're going to make sure that you're getting your exercise in for your goals. And then I should probably have started with this one, but finally, do your labs. Go ahead and do your labs. Even if you happen to not have insurance, for example, and you don't have readily available a panel that you can just request when you want to request it, you can get pretty affordable panels done. But it's really important that you know what you're even looking at. That's really something that should be started with when you're looking at doing a research PEP journey or a GLP journey, or both. You want to make sure that you're looking at what your labs look like, what is elevated, what is underperforming, and how can PEPs and your GLP, how are they going to be able to help you to get healthier, get back to where you need to be. So bottom line, cycle PEPs, periodize your GLP-1s, keep muscle, keep your hydration, keep your rest and your mental health in check. And I hope for Yellow Rose that I answered the question thoroughly enough for you. And I love this. If there's anybody who has a question about any of the content that I'm posting, and you'd like to do a deeper dive into a particular thing, or you do feel as though our community could use a little more explanation around some things, that's what I do. I love to deep dive, and I love to share this with you. Let me know what you'd like to see. I will be happy to do this again. Thank you. Hope it helps.